Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And if you go back just to the beginning of the recession and take the labor force participation rate then, I think we'd be about 10%, and to the beginning of the administration, high nines. So those unemployment numbers are clearly unacceptable, and that's why we need tax reform, because it's one thing that can actually give the economy a shot in the arm. I found your testimony really compelling. I was here earlier to get to hear all of you, and I think this is an urgent issue, not just an important issue. And I'm really glad you're here, and I'm glad the chairman and the ranking member not just willing to have this hearing, but are willing to push forward on this issue. They both said the same thing at the beginning, which is this is an area where we can actually make progress on a bipartisan basis. And it's urgent for our workforce, for American workers, and for their ability to have rising salaries. We have got to have a more competitive code. So let me just, if I could, Mr. Chairman, put something in the record. This is in the Wall Street Journal yesterday. This is the Valiant-Salix deal. Shows why inverted companies will keep winning. Amazing story.
Without objection, we'll put it in the record.
It says that Valiant just bought Salix for $10 billion. It says it's a clear sign that inverted companies have a clear edge in deal making. Actually, it's not. It's a clear sign that all foreign-owned businesses have a clear advantage. And let me just tell you, this is, Valiant inverted back in 2010. They are now Canadian domiciled. Salix tried to follow suit last year. They wanted to go to Italy. That deal fell apart after Treasury cracked down on these so-called inversions. And now Salix is being purchased by Valiant. So there it is. Here's what's even more interesting to me. All but one of the bidders for Salix had non-U.S. headquarters. All of them, except one. The one U.S. bidder was Mylan, which is in the process of moving its headquarters to the Netherlands. So I'd like to submit this for the record, but I mean, we are, I'm a beer drinker. I love to make this point. You can't buy an American beer anymore because the largest market share is Sam Adams with 1.4%. This is because of our tax code. It's happening. And I think we'll look back 5 or 10 years from now at this testimony you all gave and say, why didn't we listen to them? And it's bipartisan, it's nonpartisan, it's not about who's up, who's down. It's about simply creating an environment for success. So I thank you all for being here and for making that point so clearly. I told Dr. Tyson that I liked her testimony. Here's part of it that I liked, but it's so troubling. The Global Fortune 500 U.S. participation has declined more than any other country, 179 down to 128. And the foreign-based competitors to American companies are all headquartered in countries with lower rates. By the way, 93% of them are in countries that have a territorial system. So we're getting left behind. We're just, we're on the sidelines just watching this happen. The one issue I think we don't do a good enough job pointing out is this is about workers. And one reason I really liked your testimony, Dr. Boskin, is because you talked about that. If you could just go into a little more detail on why this is about workers. We have the CBO study that shows 70% of the corporate tax burden is borne by the workers. We have this AEI study. They looked at 72 countries over 22 years. They found for every 1% increase in corporate tax rates, wages decreased by 1%. You have this Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City study, 10-point increase in corporate tax reduces annual gross wages by 7%. We all want to see an economy where there are rising wages, and unfortunately it's not happening now. We all want to see middle-class families be able to get ahead. Tell us why corporate tax reform should matter.
Senator Portman, you're exactly right. Over time, wages tend to reflect productivity growth, not perfectly, but roughly. And the clearest evidence we have is that higher investment rates lead to higher productivity, a lower corporate rate, fixing some of these issues of where real activity is located with corporate reform and overall reform would increase productivity, increase growth, raise most of the benefits of that growth would go to workers and increase wages. In the short run, it would also help reduce this excess unemployment. It would give growth a boost and therefore reduce the number of people out of the labor force as people had an opportunity to re-enter with decent jobs. So I think overwhelmingly the evidence is the benefits would go to workers. Not 100%, but 70% by the CBO studies, probably about right.
Which is so badly needed right now. The other thing that was brought up here earlier from Dr. Diamond was the macroeconomic analysis being helpful. We've had this debate, back and forth over the last few years. In fact, there was an amendment passed during the budget resolution discussion a few years ago, the only budget resolution discussion we've had. Hopefully we'll have another one this year, of providing a macroeconomic score, not just for the final product, but as Dr. Diamond has said, for the process, so that you know, have some sense at least, what's pro-growth and what's not. Can you tell us, Dr. Diamond or Dr. Tyson or Dr. Gravel, why that's so important?
I think it's important, if you just take a management, a very popular management adage, which is if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And I think that's true for our economy. If we can't measure what different reforms will do, what the impacts will be, then how can we expect to get the tax reform to its most efficient form? On this corporate reform issue, a problem I have with the strict, just base broadening, rate reducing approach is that we do leave all of the current flaws in the system, the flaws that Jane has brought up with different treatment of different types of assets, if we have accelerated depreciation for equipment but not for structures. And at the same time, if we just lower the rate a little, have a very timid reform, it's not going to have a big impact on growth. Maybe we should do something a little more, to really create a new modern income tax approach. And I think Alan Arbach has given a good framework for that, of moving to a destination-based cash flow tax. So we would reduce our effective rate on capital income to 0. We would now lead the world in the lowest tax on investment and corporate income. And I think that would be a great thing for the U.S.
Other comments on that? And then my time has expired.
Can I just say that I completely agree with the notion that we should be assessing our macroeconomic policy and the composition of our fiscal policy in terms of the growth and efficiency issues we've been focused on today. I do want to indicate, however, that there are certain areas of spending where also we need to take this look. So we are underinvesting in our infrastructure. That has effects on efficiency and growth over time. We are underinvesting in research and development in basic science. We've cut that way back and we continue to threaten back. And probably of all of the tax incentives which appear to work and all of the evidence of government spending that appears to generate long-term positive growth effects, R&D is the area. So I would say if we're going to do this, we need to focus on both the tax side and the spending side on research and development. And I would add here education, because we've been talking about labor force participation rates. But it's also the case that some of this is due to the fact that the technology and the technological requirements of skills are changing, and the skills of the labor force are not keeping pace, and that keeps more people out of the process than should be in the process. So we have to focus on the returns to education and on making adequate investments in education.
Thank you. And for those people who are in the process, higher productivity because of better skills training. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for your indulgence.